Hey guys, this is a video on PC Part Picker for what I believe are some good picks now in 2025 of July. Now, this list will change as time goes on, I can assure you that, but relatively, you can follow this list and make minor adjustments as you need. But I'm going to go over and pick a few options. So, if you're going for the more budget-oriented side of things, the Ryzen 7 5700X 3D is an excellent CPU if you can pick it up for relatively cheap. $300 is something you might not typically see it for. It might be usually go more lower to the $200 range around that price point. I would try to pick it up at a lot more lower than that. The 300 mark is definitely something you don't want to be choosing. At a budget, I mean, these two are the best right here. The best CPU in the market for FPS is going to be a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D. Yes, the 9950X 3D is better, but nobody can really afford that at these prices. So in terms of budget, what's actually really good is at this list right here, the 5800X, although this doesn't have the 3D V-Cache, which is really good for playing games, you can often find it for a pretty good price. $175 is not a bad price. However, that locks you to the AM4 platform. So if you must go to AM5 platform, which I highly recommend a lot of people do for upgradability in the future, Ryzen 5 7600 or the Ryzen 5 9600X are great CPUs. If you can find a 7600X 3D, do grab it. These things are great. However, you're going to have a hard time finding them. And when the Ryzen 5 9600X 3D does come out, that would be a CPU I would heavily emphasize gravitating towards. But for now, just for a budget-oriented list, we're going to say grab the Ryzen 5 7600X. Now, this won't come with a cooler. You'll need to get a cooler, and I highly recommend always getting an aftermarket cooler. Stock coolers can be fine for the most part, but it's better safe than sorry, and I'd much rather go with a cooler. Now, my typical, absolute loved, and most preferred cooler to go with has always been the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE. This cooler right here, for the price point, you won't really get much better than this. Thermalright is a budget-oriented brand. They're not great, they're not horrible, they do the job. And for a cooler, that's all you can really ask for. And this will compete with a lot of the lower-end liquid coolers out there. So I highly recommend, if you're going for a CPU like this, pick up this cooler. It is an absolute steal. And when it comes to motherboards, I wouldn't sweat it too much mattering what you pick here when we're going for this low of a CPU. Main things is you're going to want to look for okay VRMs. So those are the things that actually control the power to the CPU. With poor VRMs, it means your CPU can't run to its full potential. And oftentimes you won't hit that with these CPUs and motherboards nowadays. But if you try to upgrade your CPU in the future, you might run into those issues. But for the most part, I would say if you absolutely need Wi-Fi, because remember, computers do not come with Wi-Fi on their own. You need to make sure it has Wi-Fi if you want that. You can add aftermarket cards to your PC. However, take into the consideration you got to buy the card plus the motherboard. Would have just been cheaper for you to buy a model with Wi-Fi on it. And that's why I often recommend for people to buy Wi-Fi on their board, then they never have to worry about the issue in the future. But onboard Wi-Fi can be bad. But for the most part, something budget-oriented, like this ASRock board. ASRock's a decently good brand. This is a B850, so it's a newer generation of chipset. Because remember, these can go back to the 650 for the AM5 chipset. So we're going to go ahead and just choose a budget board here. This is micro ATX. If you really want to go for full-size ATX, you can. I would typically avoid going mini ATX at a budget like this, simply because there's too many trade-offs in my opinion. And to go for the mini ITX case, you're just spending way more money than you realistically have to. So for this example, we're just going to go for a ASRock B850M X Wi-Fi R.2. So it's relatively budget here. And for memory, I highly recommend trying to go with relatively the cheapest set of 32 gigs of RAM. You can get away with 16 gigs, but so many more games nowadays are really demanding that 32 gigabyte amount. And you want to future-proof it a little bit. Not a ton, but just enough. 16 gigs of RAM, if you have it, that's fine. However, if you're making a new build like this, go sort for the cheapest kit and just look at the timings. So the first word latency is the real important thing here. This takes the cast latency into effect and the speed. The speed of the RAM alone won't tell you how good it is. It is that first word latency, because CAS latency is a huge factor. I won't get into details about it, but for a budget right now, what I'm looking here, so I'm looking at the first word latency. I can see this Silicon Power kit right here. It's 80 bucks. It's got a 12 nanosecond first word latency. It's pretty good. However, we wanted to save money. This Team Group kit is pretty good here. And for the sake of argument, I am going to say go with the little bit faster RAM. This will give you a much better experience. And this is 6000 megahertz transfer, and with a 36 CAS latency. We're going to pick this guy right here. Storage, when it comes to storage, we're going to take a look at our board. Do we have support for Gen 4 SSDs? So we're going to take this board, when you find a board like this, and you can quickly go down and scroll, what does it have for support for its PCIe slots? So it will say it's got support for the slots. Does it tell you if it's a Gen 4 slot here? I don't believe it does. So what you can do, an easy way, take the board name, go to Google, paste it in Google, go to the board's website, and you can check here what kind of M.2 port does it actually have, what it can support. What we're looking for here is this PCIe 4.0, 5.0, or 3.0? So it looks like here the M.2 does support 5.0. However, I don't think 5.0 is necessary for a lower end build like this. So we're going to sort, and we're also going to only choose SATA SSDs, not SATA, M.2 SSDs, sorry. M.2 SSDs are the way the future's going, and they're convenient, they're small, you don't need to run a SATA cable, you don't need to run SATA power. So if you get a modular, you don't need to run those cables. So we're going to sort here, and we're going to go to our interface, and we're going to sort by PCIe 4.0, and we're going to put the 5.0s, although we probably aren't going to get these results because of the price point we're going to shop at. It's good to have them there just in case there is a really good deal on one that we can look at. So we're going to take our capacity here. We're going to check this capacity to something reasonable. If you're building a new build like this, 500 gigabytes is at least the minimum, or 480 gigabytes. 500, 480 is pretty much the same thing. So we're going to look by bottom price here. And we're going to look. Brands do matter when it comes to storage quite a bit, and I would really go towards reliable brands. So Team Group, they're pretty reliable, and they're relatively well trusted. Now, this SSD is pretty slow in its own regard, so we're going to look at any better options here, which I don't see a ton. Patriot is okay. Clev, never even heard of. PNY, they're okay. Mushkin, never heard of these people. Kingston, they're okay. PNY, again, Kingspect is meh at best. Western Digital is great, but these are their lower SKU lineups. Crucial is a really good company. However, at these price points, we're going to look at the 1 terabyte SSD, because I think a lot of people should be buying 1 terabytes in 2025. So we're going to look here. This is a Kingspect. This is the cheapest SSD here, and it is a Gen 4 drive. However, we're going to look here. Silicon Power is a brand I really do trust. I think they've been making great products, and they've been really reliable for me. And we can also take a look at these SSDs. Say we versus the cheapest Kingspect versus the Silicon Power. So we're looking at what, a $5 difference there. And what's the transfer speeds on these guys? It might not say on PC Part Picker, but if we go to their actual individual websites, it would tell us. Oh, here we go. We got some benchmarks along the side here now. But it looks like we don't have any benchmarks for the Kingspect. And that reason, I'm just going to skip the Kingspect altogether. We're going to go for the Silicon Power drive. So, when it comes to a video card, it's mostly what you can afford is really going to be the limiting factor here. So, really good cards nowadays, 9060 XT, if you can find it in the 16 gig model. Avoid the 8 gig model of the 90 series of the AMD cards. Like 8 gigs of VRAM is enough nowadays. However, we are really chasing more VRAM nowadays. So when I come to my VRAM slider, I'm going to take it. I'm going to say my minimum VRAM amount. I want at least minimum 10 gigs. So we're going to sort by cheapest, and we're going to see what we get here for results. 3060 is a little outdated in my opinion, and it's not going to look like we're going to have a ton of options here. Remember, I'm sorting by cheapest, and 10 gig being my lowest factor here. So when I'm looking at these cards, I see a 9060 XT, but it's out of stock though, so I'm not going to include that because it's a little unfair. This 9060 XT is in stock though. Now this could be skewing my results for what I can see as well for what's in stock and what's out of stock, because I'm in Canada, but I'm searching via US PC part picker. So once we have this, the card that you're going to pick is going to matter. So we're going to see what does the manufacturer recommend. So you're going to take your card for a power supply, that is, and say minimum PSE requirements. Autofiltering there. They're going to recommend at minimum a 550 or a 500 watt. So I would probably say go with the 550 watt then, at minimum. Here it says 450 watt. However, I like to be a little overshooting with my power supplies when I pick them out. So we're going to go to power supplies now. We're going to sort, and we're going to take the wattage, and we'll say 550 is our absolute bottom line. So when you see power supplies, you might be tempted to just say, hey, this is the cheapest, let me buy it. Please don't do this. Please don't do this when it comes to power supplies. Power supplies are so important you buy a good quality one. So we're going to look here. Apevia is a horrible brand. Don't ever touch them. These Thermaltake Smart power supplies, I don't like them at all. They're really poor quality. Montech is a new player in the case world who's been really dominating it. They've proven themselves to make excellent cases, and for that reason, I'm going to choose their power supply. It's a 550 watt here, and we can go ahead and look at reviews of it. It's going to look different because, again, like I said, I'm in Amazon Canada and not in Amazon America. However, when we look at it here, we're going to go down to reviews. We don't see any reviews though, which is a little strange. However, I do trust Montech, so I'm going to add this power supply to the list. When it comes to the case is really a lot personal preference. It's really what you want. But we're going to go to the cases, and we're going to sort by the cheapest because we're on a budget here. And when we look for a case, we're looking for something with good airflow, and might come with a few extra fans, so we don't have to spend that extra money on fans. So I'm going to take a look here. Thermaltake Versa, it's an okay case. This is really cheap. So cheap, I don't believe this listing. Zalman, don't really love them. These Masterbox QL300s, I hate building in these things. They use acrylic glass, which is really prone to scratching. The whole case and the whole build of it is just poor quality. The airflow is really restrictive, yet it's all mesh, but the airflow is still restrictive because the way they did the mesh just isn't that good quality. These panels move around because it's only magnetic. I just stay away from this case entirely. So for that reason, I would say also avoid acrylic side paneling. Acrylic is really prone to scratching. You want tempered glass if you're going to want a side panel. If you don't want a side panel, don't get a side panel. Simple as that. Just buy one that's flat black. But I'm going to see here. This one looks okay. This is a micro ATX build. It could do. This is a Cooler Master. Has tempered glass. Okay size. But we're going to keep scrolling down here, see if anything sparks our interest. Montech's a great brand. I absolutely love their cases. And it looks like the best option for us is probably going to be this Cooler Master Elite here. So we're going to choose him. That's going to bring our running total so far to $938 American before taxes. Now, you can make many changes to this list. Add a better CPU, go to a Ryzen 5 9600X. That's completely fair. You can drop down to AM4 if you don't want to go to AM5 just yet. This cooler, I would keep it for almost any build you're going to be doing nowadays. This RAM, it's going to be a great budget for the price. This SSD is a solid SSD, reliable, it's fast, it's Gen 4. This card here, you can maybe look around for better cards if you wanted, but remember, if you're going to go for much better cards, you got to worry about your CPU bottlenecking it then. So this is a good pairing right here. This case, again, really what's in your area as well. Cases are also a little expensive to ship, so I find sometimes I have better luck going into physical stores to buy my cases, because having somebody ship out a case to your house is a lot of work for a shipping company. Therefore, they might have discounts better at your local electronics store. And for power supply, 550 watt from a reputable brand. Anything or higher for this list, depending on your graphics card, that will change. Your CPU won't play a huge amount into what your power supply is going to need. Also, PC Part Picker's estimated wattage I find to be horribly inaccurate when it comes to your build. Its estimated wattage is 374. I could believe it when it says 374 under full use. However, under full use, a power supply is only good up to an 80% efficiency. So that 550 watt will quickly be used up if you said had a estimated wattage of 550 here, because it can only go to 80% of 550. Therefore, you want something that's well over this number, but this number oftentimes is just not good. Go by your graphics card manufacturer, whatever they say is good for it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. When it comes to anything though that you want to change, let me know in the comments and I can help you guys out, make some budget builds around you guys. And yeah, hope you enjoy.